Hello, my cup fillers, and welcome back to another episode of the Can I Get a Refill podcast, another solo episode just with myself, which I recorded 2 days ago. And it was a great episode, very emotional, very vulnerable. Audio's perfect, video was completely frozen. So I have to re-record, and I hate doing that because it doesn't feel as authentic. And what I'm talking about today is confidence through being our most authentic selves. No, honestly, we're talking about confidence today, but not the big, loud confidence that you might think of when you hear the word confidence. We're talking about being confident by being our most authentic selves through having a very strong, healthy relationship with the self. That's something that has really worked for me over the last couple of decades, and I'm not there yet. I'm still continuing to grow, but I wanted to share some thoughts with you that have just been so beneficial to me. So you exude your confidence when you're being your most authentic self, but there is no formula or roadmap to being your most authentic self. It's just something that you strengthen through the relationship with yourself. And in order to really be the real you, you must truly know and accept yourself. And you know that when you're doing something that's just aligned with your values or feels right to you, you feel comfortable. And it's all over, you can say all the words, but it's all over your facial expression if you're in an environment or doing something that doesn't quite feel right. So as we get older, we're not afraid to say, no, that doesn't feel right for me. And again, this episode, like every episode, will be tied into boundaries because that's really important. So, with little children, like toddlers, preschool age, they're just so gorgeous. Everyone loves looking at them. They're so free, but they truly in the moment and they don't care what you think about them. And I think that they're learning, they're different, their brain's different to us, but they look like they have a much healthier relationship with the self than we do. And as we get older, we seem to be a bit more tainted about what people are thinking of us and then get a little insecure and second guess ourselves. And it's hard to be confident when you're second guessing yourself. I think back to my teens and 20s, which were great and fun. It's not, it's not a big sob story, but I was very insecure. I had very low self-esteem, as I think a lot of people do, especially in high school. I felt like in primary school, I was a big fish in a little pond and went to this performing arts high school where I was a very small fish in a very big pond, and you're trying to fit in. It's awkward. It's uncomfortable. I would, great memories, so I wouldn't do it again. And I think back to some horrible times, in high school, sometimes I would jig high school, not to smoke weed, not to hang out with boys, although occasionally that did happen, but I would go to Hurstville Station, lock myself in the public bathroom and read a stack of books because I felt so like it's embarrassing to admit. I didn't only just started admitting that now in my 40s, but I was uncomfortable. It's like I didn't want to be out in the world. I remember struggling to make eye contact with people when I was low confidence, and that's something that I'm so comfortable to do now. I love being in the moment and engaging with others. And personal vibration, like your vibration, your frequency, that comes up in manifesting a lot. That's something that you can't fake. As I was saying with the facial expression or the words, you can say the right words, but if you're not feeling it, if you're not on an energetic frequency or match for the things that you desire, you can't fool the universe. So whatever you're trying to desire won't happen. So everything comes back to that relationship with the self and really truly knowing and loving and accepting the self. Another thing I want to talk about is determining if your worth or your identity or your value is wrapped up in the external. So like a job and all these things can be taken away from you in a split second. Nothing external is guaranteed. Your home, your job, your relationships, your finances, that can all go in a split second. But if you have that really, really strong relationship and know who you are, even though what you might go through might be a struggle, but you will survive with your head held high because you'll be stronger. You'll be more confident. So it's the one thing in this life and the next that is just continues that relationship with yourself. I really loved the word quest. I mentioned this in another episode. When I was a kid, my favorite movie was The Never-Ending Story, and Atreyu went on the ultimate quest, and then he had to go through the Southern Oracle, and you had to look in a mirror deep in your soul, and it would undo the strongest men. But I always use the word quest since 2011. I had a big breakup in 2010 and I said, I'm on a quest. And the quest was to find myself. But what I'm finding as I get older is, am I finding myself or am I just, it was all there. It was already there in the first place. I'm just unbecoming or unlearning what society has taught me along the way. And it's a very nice journey, that journey with yourself. My tip for you is to ask yourself these key questions. What are my core values? What do I enjoy doing? What do I like most about myself? And write these down. Do that for a journaling exercise. When in life have I felt most lit up? That's a really great way, especially if someone's struggling to find what their niche is or what they want to do for a career. If you're talking about your strengths, what you're good at, but when you can tap into a memory when you felt lit up, that's very powerful. How do I feel right now? So sitting in silence or in meditation is a great way to tap into that. And to end with, how would I like to feel? How would I like to feel today in myself, in my life? The best methods for me to get to know myself have been spending time on my own, dating myself, going out to the movies by myself, okay, it's harder when you have kids. I completely understand. I used to have so much more time to do this. I used to take a big stack of books to botanical gardens, read books, but I love having time on my own and not being in the house doing chores is not time on your own. You got to really, treat yourself like the guy you're trying to go out with or the guy you've just started going out with. You would check in with him. Would you like to be surprised with your favorite cup of coffee? Would you like to be taken out on this nice date? And you would check in with them. How's your day been? Do that to yourself. Do that to yourself all the time. Whether you're in a relationship, have kids, do that to yourself. You are your most valuable asset. Sitting in silence is very important. No one likes to sit in silence. Every single waiting room you're at a medical center, nail salon, everyone's got the phone out. Sit in silence. Sit in silence. It's a great way to be at one with yourself, but it's also a great way to be creative. I always reference when I used to do songwriting, my best ideas would come in the shower or on long walks in nature where I didn't have headphones in because I was silent. It's a gap. It's a blank space for something new to be created. Otherwise, you're just flooded with entertainment constantly. Meditating, you all have 10 to 15 minutes every morning. Put your alarm on 10 to 15 minutes earlier. You can do it. Guided meditations on YouTube. I like Boho Beautiful. And I also YouTube chakra balancing meditations. They really work for me. Or just beautiful music. I like 432 hertz. And journaling, this is something that, when I was young, I always had do you remember the diaries, the little locks? I loved those. And my Dear Diary moment. But as an adult, I always heard people talk about journaling, but I was like, I do enough already. I do my affirmations. But I'm really loving that this past year, especially because I wake up and I habit stack it with the meditating and the reading. And then I do a quick journal and I might write out affirmations. I might write gratitude list. I might just talk my feelings out. And it feels really good to have that brain dump. And that, to me, is developing a relationship with myself. It's like I'm talking to myself. I really like it. So when I think back to when I had no confidence, I feel like I could never really truly tell the world who I was until I truly knew who I was. And this is the same with boundaries. I'm always saying, don't be pissed off when someone doesn't respect your boundaries. If you're not clear on them, don't expect other people to be clear on them. So you need to really think in silence, who am I and what are my boundaries? And then project that to the world. I have an episode coming up. I don't like to usually give a preview of who we've got coming on, but I was so excited to get astrologer, author and podcast host Jordana Levine on the podcast. We did that episode recently and I loved it so much, and that'll be coming out soon. I've read 2 of her books, Make It Happen and Make You Happen. And in Make You Happen, she states that the best way to find your core values is through curiosity, acceptance, and embodiment. So we might touch on that in the manifesting episode, but I would recommend checking out those books as well because they're manifestation books, but they're also very much about self-love and developing the relationship with the self, because everything comes back to that. Blockages with money, relationship with the self, core beliefs, work on shadow work. It's all you. It all comes back to you. And be kind to yourself. Be so kind, like you're talking to your child or your best friend, you would only say beautiful words to your best girlfriend. So do that to yourself. We're always criticizing ourselves, and like at least try complimenting yourself once a day. But Louise Hay used to talk about mirror work. And, I often think about when you look in the mirror, it's in a critical way. You look at your cellulite, you look at your thighs, you look at your hips, you look at, oh, you're just doing makeup or you're in a rush. Do you really look into your soul and say something kind to yourself? And it's hard. It's hard to do with a smile. It really brings something up. And I find it's a really good way to talk to the little Steph, the little child within you, is by doing that mirror work. Now, I want to say disregard judgments and external validation, but I completely understand that is so much easier said than done. And we all do it. I do it. But do you know that Baz Luhrmann song, the sunscreen song? I love that. Secure for anything. But he always says, remember compliments that you receive, forget the criticism. And he goes, if you figure out how to do that, tell me. But it's so true. We focus on the little bad things because we're perfectionists and we want to be perfect, but just hang on to the good and let the bad go. And this moment right now is the only true moment. The rest, it doesn't matter. But worrying about those judgments, I think, comes back to perfectionism. And I always say I'm a recovering people pleaser and recovering perfectionist. And it's a really hard life when you're a perfectionist. And it's okay to make mistakes. And the road to success is full of trial and error. And I don't know why I always expect myself to be perfect, especially at trying something new. How ridiculous. You're not a computer, and computers stuff up too. But everything takes work. We always reference, children, they don't fall over once when they start walking and go, that's it, it's not for me. They just get up and keep going. My son climbed the fucking TV cabinet yesterday and we said, don't do it. And we went to go get him and he fell and hit his head, but he went straight back to it to try again. And I was like, it's wrong and I'm angry, but I also respect the tenacity. So don't expect yourself to be perfect. You're putting such unnecessary pressure on yourself, but also own your mistakes. Don't hide them like it's shame, like it's bad. I used to work, for years, I hid my mistakes. I would, I make very few mistakes. I'm a real perfectionist, but I would work tirelessly if I made any little error because I was so afraid of like negative feedback. And who gives a fuck if someone gives you negative feedback? And especially if it's in a constructive way, that's good. That's how you learn. That's how you grow. I used to work in a beauty business years ago. I was a customer service girl and the logistics manager is now my friend. Many years later, he's much older than me. So I would go into his office if I needed wise guidance. And I remember I changed my whole outlook on mistakes and owning mistakes after he taught me you should always put up your hand and own your mistakes. And he goes, it's so much better to find it out now and fix it rather than 4 months later. And then you'll lose sleep when you worry someone will think about something you did. But then he used to walk around the office going, oh, I'm an idiot if I made a mistake. And I was like, no, you did something idiotic. You're not an idiot. You should change that wording. It reminds me of Brene Brown, who does shame research. And I don't know if it was on her book or the podcast with Oprah, where she talks about her daughter Ellen, who's grown up now, but when she was little and she was, I think, 6 in school, the teacher rang her up and said, oh, I know what you do for work. And she's like, oh, why? And she said, Ellen was in the corner, in the craft corner with all the glitter and it was all a big mess. And I went up to her and said, oh, Ellen, you are such a mess. And the child stands up and says, I may have made a mess, but I am not a mess. And I just think that is golden. That girl knew more about life than we did. Guilt is I made a mistake. Shame is I am a mistake. Guilt is I made a mess. Shame is I am a mess. Shame is the lowest of low vibrations frequency at 25 hertz. It's you can't have a successful life and be happy when you have shame. It's like that dirty, dirty emotion that is so hard to scrub off your skin. You could have years of therapy to get rid of shame. So that's something I'm learning to. The more I love myself, I'm like, I'm perfect just as I am. All the fuck ups, all the mistakes, they're all, I always say you're a mosaic of every experience you've had in your life creates this beautiful mosaic, but it's not you. It's not your essence. It's a little piece. So I think about those, there's 5,000 piece puzzles. The final picture, when it makes sense, like a big picture of New York or Central Park or something, that's you. That's you. But the little puzzle piece, it's not you. It's one piece of the puzzle. So along with acknowledging your mistakes, really acknowledge and accept your strengths and weaknesses. I think that's a great way to get to know yourself. You know, like in business, to the top business people, they don't try and hide that they suck at something, or they don't try and get better at it. They hire and delegate someone who's great at marketing. So just hone in on your strengths and weaknesses. You can't be good at everything, and Lord knows I've tried. And you end up being subpar and mediocre at lots of things. Try describing yourself in one paragraph using I statements. So, and it can be good and bad. It can be I am emotional, I am sensitive, but it can be I am tenacious, I'm courageous, I'm strong, and I'm still learning. Try writing some things when you do your next journaling about yourself, but be kind and constructive. I think that part of the journey of confidence is doing everything with integrity. If you're going to do something, do it well, or just don't do it at all. What a waste of time if you're just going to do something half-assed. I had a beautiful best friend many years ago. Chantel, we had the same birthday, and she died in a car accident in January of '08. And she had 1,000 people pouring out of the church at her funeral because she touched so many lives, not just because she was so beautiful, but she made a real impact. And she did everything with so much integrity and so much love and care. She worked at Domino's on King Street, Newtown, which I think then turned into Eagle Boys Pizza, and I don't know what it is now. And this was in school, it was her after school job. And she was like, I make the best pizzas. Everyone calls up for my pizzas. I do this with the pepperoni. And hey, they may have been the best pizzas, they may not have. I'm not a Domino's fan, but it was the intention she put behind it. She put so much love and care into that. And that's why she had over 1,000 people pouring out of that church at her funeral, because she touched lives because of the intention and integrity. Years ago, I think I mentioned I had a really big debt, and I worked 3 jobs. It was so hard, and there were jobs I liked, but I was so tired. And I know it was when I first moved out of home, I was working 2 jobs, and I worked at Cook and Phillip Park. It's a pool and a gym in the city on the weekends, and I worked a 9 to 5 job during the week, and I'd be so tired napping in my car. But before every shift, I used to either say out loud or write on a Post-it, today is a great day. I am going to make a positive impact on someone's day today. And no matter how tired I was, I forgot the tiredness and focused on when my whole goal in all my life of doing customer service is that when someone leaves me, whether it be online or better in person, I want them to leave feeling better, feeling like a little spark of light has touched their life that day. And I would have people queue up to come and see me. There'd be 2 lines, but they'd always queue up more on mine. And then many years ago, I worked at Westpac. For those overseas, it's a bank. I could not make this job work. I'm more of a wordsmith. I'm not a numbers person. I have been good. I will say that I'm great at every job I've done. I've always been promoted. I could not make this work. Something wasn't clicking. I found it too fast and confusing. And then I know people always say this about breakups, that they're mutual, but this really was sort of, we came to a meeting where that, management was sort of implying it wasn't working, and I was ready to say this isn't working. So it parted ways in an amicable way. But on my last week, I remember the manager coming up to me and saying, Stephanie, if I was your mother, I would be so proud of how you have conducted yourself this week, especially. And I was only young, but I think I was probably maybe relieved too that the pressure was off, because I didn't have to be good at the job anymore. But I could have slacked off. I could have not shown up. I could have finished early. I worked so hard and I just remember putting so much effort into every customer and wanting to make it a great experience. And again, I used to have people queuing up to want to for me to serve them. I'm not trying to big note myself, but what I'm saying is the intention behind everything I did was to make a positive impact in someone's life, and that's high integrity. And that has added to my confidence, that has added to my personality, and hopefully to how people remember me. You know that expression, is it Maya Angelou? No, I can't remember. But people will never remember what you did or what you say, but they will always remember how you make them feel. And that's, in this day and age with mental narcissistic male world leaders, just focus on how you can make others feel and yourself. I want to share an open letter with you from actress Patricia Routledge, who just died at 96. She was the actress in Keeping Up Appearances. I don't know if you're of my vintage. I reckon you watched this. It was like Fawlty Towers, and I think it had a lot of episodes. It was a BBC, British comedy. But it was just on a constant loop. I remember in the 90s growing up, my dad and I loved this show, and it was just like a warm hug of a show, it was comforting. And she passed away, and she penned this letter, I think a week before turning 95. It is so special. I want you to have a listen. I'll be turning 95 this coming Monday. When I was younger, I often worried I wasn't good enough, that I'd never be cast again, that I'd disappoint my mother. But these days begin in peace and end in gratitude. In my 40s, my life finally began to make sense. Before that, I'd performed steadily, provincial stages, radio plays, West End productions, but felt somewhat lost. I was searching for something within myself, a home I hadn't yet found. At 50, I took a television role that many of you would later know me by, Hyacinth Bouquet from Keeping Up Appearances. I thought it would just be a minor role, a brief moment. I've never expected it to become beloved across the globe. That character taught me to embrace my quirks and quietly healed something deep within me. At 60, I started learning Italian, not for my career, but simply so I could sing opera in its native tongue. I learned the gentle art of living alone without loneliness, reading poetry aloud each night, not to perfect diction, but to soothe my spirit. At 70, I returned to the Shakespearean theatre, a place I once thought I'd aged out of. This time there was nothing to prove. I stepped onto those legendary boards with calmness. The audience felt that serenity. I had stopped performing. I was simply being. At 80, I discovered watercolour painting. I painted flowers from my garden, nostalgic hats from my youth, and faces glimpsed on the London Underground. Each painting was a silent memory made tangible. Now at 95, I write letters by hand. I'm learning the simple joy of baking rye bread. I still breathe deeply each morning. Laughter remains precious, though I no longer feel the need to make others laugh. Quietness is sweeter than ever. I'm writing this today to share something simple and true. Growing older isn't a final act. It can be life's most exquisite chapter if you allow yourself to bloom once more. Let the years ahead be your treasure years. You don't have to be perfect, famous, or adored. You only need to be present fully for the life that's yours. With warmth and gentle love, Patricia Routledge. I found that so, so moving. Every time I read it, it just lights something up inside of me. And it's not titled Confidence. It's not about it. But she found so much self-love through every decade instead of submitting to some sort of external expectation of what a woman should be and do. And it's true beauty to me. I'm going to end with something that changed my life in my troubled years of being in a violent relationship. One of my very wise girlfriends said to me, "You have to read Maya Angelou's Phenomenal Woman poem." And I truly believe that every woman should read this once a year. This is powerful. This woman walked into a room and everyone took notice. And no matter the trials and tribulations in her life, that woman knew herself. She had integrity and she stood up for everything she believed in. And she has inspired many, many across the globe. Phenomenal Woman. Pretty women wonder where my secret lies. I'm not cute or built to suit a fashion model's size. But when I start to tell them, they think I'm telling lies. I say, it's in the reach of my arms, the span of my hips, the stride of my step, the curl of my lips. I'm a woman, phenomenally, phenomenal woman. That's me. I walk into a room just as cool as you please. And to a man, the fellows stand or fall down on their knees. Then they swarm around me, a hive of honeybees. I say, it's in the fire in my eyes and the flash of my teeth, the swing in my waist and the joy in my feet. I'm a woman, phenomenally, phenomenal woman. That's me. Men themselves have wondered what they see in me. They try so much, but they can't touch my inner mystery. When I try to show them, they say they still can't see. I say, it's in the arch of my back, the sun of my smile, the ride of my breasts, the grace of my style. I'm a woman, phenomenally phenomenal woman. That's me. Now you understand just why my head's not bowed. I don't shout or jump about or have to talk real loud. When you see me passing, it ought to make you proud. I say, it's in the click of my heels, the bend of my hair, the palm of my hand, the need for my care. Because I'm a woman, phenomenally phenomenal woman. That's me. I hope these words really touched something in you today and really inspired you. In that poem, particularly, it didn't matter what the scales said, how much Botox she had. And I get things done, I'm not saying that, but we live in a world where we're constantly being dictated who we should be, what we should say, and particularly what we should look like. And you can see from those words that that woman had such love for every curve, every crevice of her body, exactly as it was. And when I do my affirmations, I always start with, I love and accept myself fully and wholly, exactly as I am. And I hope that's something you do for yourself, because you are perfect, you are beautiful, and you are special. And don't worry about confidence. Don't worry about money. Don't worry about relationships. You work on loving yourself and everything will flow in. And I'm telling you that my life improved drastically when I really, truly started to love myself. I hope this really has been helpful for you. And please share this with someone who you think it will benefit. Do something in the next week to fill up your cup. I'll see you again soon.